Welcome back to the Arise Exchange here on Arise News. Now, continued coverage of the Intra-Africa Trade Fair in Algiers, Algeria. The newly established Southeast Development Commission is setting up an investment fund. This is in Nigeria now. That may help the regional commission achieve both local and foreign investments in the key projects that are under the mandate of the 5 eastern state governments in Nigeria. We just spoke with Bosun Omofayo, of course, boots on the ground in Algiers. He sat down to discuss this and more with the Chief Executive Officer of the SEDC, Mr. Mark Okoye, at the Intra-Africa Trade Fair.
One of the key exhibitors from Nigeria and sponsor of this year's edition of the fair is the Southeast Development Commission. And I sat down here on Sunday to have a conversation on how much the SEDC is doing to support the new agenda of a development commission for Southeast Nigeria. The ambition for $1 trillion US Nigerian dollar, and the CEO told me that the region could contribute at least a quarter of that in the very near future. Let's listen to that conversation.
I think it's important to give credit to who credit is due. Mr. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, in his wisdom, in his own economic agenda, came up with the plan to create regional development commissions for every region in Nigeria. So today, prior to him, we had NDDC and Northeast Development Commission. But now, after him 2 years in, we have 5 more regional development commissions, one for the Southwest, Southeast, North Central, South-South, and also Northwest, right? So for us, the Southeast, and you must understand this, the sentimental view when it comes to this development commission, it traces its origins back to 1970, right? When we continue to advocate for it. But in that time, there's been 5 presidents, democratically elected presidents, 6 military administrators, heads of states. It was never done. This was the first time it was given. So all of that makes it quite emotional to let us know as a region that we're not trying to play games with this. We take this as a very serious opportunity and one that we must leverage it to truly bring transformation and economic growth to the region. So
there are 6 governors within the Southeast. 5. So 5 of them.
Yes.
What's their mandate to you as a CEO of the SEDC?
Fantastic. As soon as we came in 208 days ago, by I would say the first day, we sat in our management meeting and we approved what will be the strategic roadmap for the region, and driven by Southeast Development Commission. The next day, we sat with our board, Emeka Anwogu, the chairman, and the rest of the board members, and he approved that roadmap. Once that was done, we went to our minister, Senator Abubakar Momo, spent time with him, getting his input into that plan. Because stakeholder engagement is so critical in public policy formulation. Right after that, we sat with our National Assembly committees, Ojus Okalu, SEDC at the Senate, and also Nkwanta, Honorable Nkwanta at the House of Reps. 2-3-hour sessions explaining to them the plan, the vision, and how we want to operate. Once we were done at the federal level, the next step we did was taking all the 18 board members to the doorstep of every governor in the Southeast region. We started off with Enugu, went all the way to Okoye, Anambra. What were we doing? Spending quality time with them, presenting our plan as aligned with the Renewed Hope agenda, and asking for their input, their direction, and what are those things they want us to focus on. Once we were done with that, we moved on. But I would say that, speaking with the governors, the brief that they gave is that they want us to transition from this era of tokenization of projects, because you have the state governments, you have the local governments who are doing intervention in basic education, water, and all of those. They defined our role as focusing on region-wide infrastructure projects, initiatives that are on, like power projects, like rail projects, like major roads that cut across 2-3 states and open you up to on airports or the proposed Bakassi ports, right? So, because these things, in our view, unlock that economic activity and industrialization we need. I think the last point even to mention in that is that they also challenged us to not play politics with the region, with the Development Commission, but craft an agenda that proposes a one-region economy. At 29,000 square kilometers, the Southeast is, when you compare it to other states, there are 12 states in Nigeria that are bigger than the Southeast alone. So with the 5 different plans of these governments, we can weave that into one unified vision.
How would you fund the SEDC?
Over the years, when you look at these sort of projects that have been presented. The truth is, the resources that will be made available, even if we multiply it 2-3 times, it cannot perhaps fund a regional rail project, nor can it perhaps fund a 500, 600 megawatt project. That's why, for us, bankability is very, very critical. We will be coming up with a program called the Southeast Project Preparation Facility. We'll be working closely with the state government. Where are your bankable projects? Where are also those bankable region-wide projects? How can we take them from concept all the way to investment-ready status? Also, Mr. President has also been very, very generous to us, because in our 100-day briefing engagement with his office, we also appealed that we need to be more creative. We want to be innovative with how we raise financing. So we put out a request asking for the creation of the Southeast Investment Company. And we can use that to mobilize capital, to partner with the private sector, to also explore diaspora financing through bonds and all of these very interesting structures. And he gave that approval 2 weeks after that. So as it stands today, we have the Southeast Investment Company set up with very clear targets on what we want to achieve between now and
Yes, I've been looking for the answer international road shows to bring international FDIs to the southeast part of Nigeria.
Completely. This was a brief we got from Mr. President. It's captured in his renewed hope agenda. This was also a brief we got from engagements with the governors in the Southeast. But the question is how and why, right? For us, we've looked at the issues around insecurity and what you have in the nation. No matter how much we spend on equipping the military, the army, and what have you, you cannot solve it sustainably unless you create jobs and new vistas of economic growth.
That makes a lot of sense.
Exactly. So all we are going to be doing with the Southeast Investment Company is essentially driving a new narrative, marketing the region in strong collaboration with the state governments, taking some of their projects and some of their investments and their initiatives and marketing to the world. We get $20 billion of diaspora remittances every year. How much of that comes to the region? We think about 20%. But where is it being invested? New churches, new community events, 1 or 2 hotels in Oka, Ebonyi, and what have you. You can tie that in. And 20% is looking at $4 billion a year. And bring that to regional rail, bring that to power projects, create products that the diaspora can invest. This is the mantra from the Renewed Hope agenda. This is the brief I got from Mr. President. And that's really what we are trying to do.
If you see development commissions in Nigeria not really to becoming politicized along the line, corruption issues, mismanagement, issues of contracts being awarded, not being a fund. How do you think you'll be dealing with that with the SEDC?
In our stakeholder engagement process, right, what we also tried to do was to actually sit with the bankers. And our brief to them very clearly. So I think we held that meeting in Abuja, about 14 of the biggest banks in Nigeria were present. And we said to them, we want the contract documents that will come out of the SEDC to be bankable. Tell us what needs to be happening. Once we were done with them, we sat with the regulators, the anti-corruption regulators. We had to pay the courtesy call to the EFCC chairman. We said, how can we work with you? Because of the accountability measures and the safeguards that have been put in place. That's one. But two, if you also recall, that we're also trying to move away, right, from tokenization of projects. That's the brief we've been given to region-wide projects. What does this really mean? A case where perhaps we could have 500 projects, or as we transition to what we want to do, maybe it's 5 or 6 or 10 or 12 or 15 projects. So more impactful. I'll give you an example. We are focusing on industrialization. The 5 southeastern states have special economic zone projects at master planning level. A lot of those projects require dual carriage road 10 kilometers to open it up. I bet you when we do that, Boston, you'll be investing in the region. Because without that today, there's people building factories in different villages. You think about your friends who you've come for their funerals and things in the Southeast. You see a factory doing paper next to a village, next to a church, next to this.
A few of them just don't understand it.
Exactly.
Take me also for example.
And it just sits in there. But ideally, for us to achieve our potential, we need to bring those sort of businesses to areas where they have shared facilities, industrial parks, same water, same power, same security infrastructure. That way, we can then start having economies of scale. And that's the agenda for the SEDC.
Final point about the IATF there, Nigeria is going to be hosting.
Yes.
In 2027, the SEDC will be there, yes or no?
100% there. We'll be there to support, because one thing for us is collaboration. SEDC is not only about the Southeast. The Southeast and the South-South, when you put those two regions together, you have access to deep sea ports. You have the market in Onitsha. You have the facilities in Aba and what it promises. When you put the Southeast and North Central together, you have the food basket of the region. And then you have the processing, which could be done in the Southeast. When you put Southwest and the Southeast together, you have the financial center of Lagos, the venture capital, the demand and consumption data of Lagos, and then you have the production that will come from the Southeast. For us, we've committed to support that event holistically, because we think that through collaboration and what we call healthy competition, we can truly achieve the $1 trillion economy as directed by Mr. President.
What is it when you say $1 trillion? This development commission alone, you folks can make $1 trillion.
What you said is actually what Governor Mba told us. He said, leave this $200 billion economy that you're targeting, target $1 trillion. But you know, I serve at the pleasure of Mr. President. He's given us a vision and a target for $1 trillion. The question is really, how can each regional development commission working closely with their state governments? I keep saying that because when you do that, you are depoliticizing it and you're focusing on true development. Working closely with the state government and seeing how we can all work together, bring in private sector capital, bring in diaspora capital, bring in DFI capital from the Afro-Exims of the world, and create truly a regional economy that perhaps can provide perhaps a quarter of that target in the next 10 years to the country.
Sounds like music to my ears.
Thank you so much, boss. It's always a pleasure hanging with you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And congratulations.